Peace and power to the true and living. What's good, family? This is Seaborn Nacirfa-Sun, and I am you. Yo, family, I'm excited to be coming at y'all once again with another powerful video. And this one is the first in the Ten Commandment series. That's right, family, the Ten Commandment series. And of course, in this video, we're going to be going over the very first commandment. I am the Lord thy God, and you shall have no gods before me. Right? So in the Grail Message, family, it tells us that if you truly make these words your own, you know, if your spirit absorbs these words of the Ten Commandments and you live according to it, that's your ticket. That's your ticket back home to the spiritual paradise that we came from. Right? But we can't do that, family, if we don't truly understand what these commandments mean. And unfortunately, you know, humanity has not gotten the true meaning of the commandments until the Grail Message, right? And this is one of the reasons why I'm always promoting the Grail Message, trying to lead you guys to the message, right? So in this video, we're going to go over the first commandments. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and begin, family. And you know what, family? There's this guy on YouTube. He does these videos, right? What's his name? I think his name is, hold on, Seaborn Nacirfa-Sun? Seaborn Nacirfa-Sun, right? He does these videos. In all his videos, he leaves links to the Grail Message, right? So we're gonna go right here, and we're gonna click on that link, and it's gonna take us right there, right here. Right? And we're going to click on book 1. And then we're going to come all the way down here, family. So as you can see, the Grail Message is available online if you don't have the book. Right? So let's click on this one right here. The first commandment. Let me zoom in. So what we're going to do, family, we're going to read it. It's a short one. It's only about 8 paragraphs. We're going to read it. And then after that, we'll have a brief discussion about it. I'll make some connections and add some commentary, and then we'll be done, right? The first commandment, I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods but me. Notice how direct that is. Didn't say, I think I'm the Lord thy God. I want to be the Lord thy God. Maybe I'm the Lord thy God. Maybe you shouldn't have no other God. No. It's very direct. I am the Lord, your God. This is God speaking to humanity. I am your God, and you should have no other gods but me. That is a very direct commandment. All right, family. Here goes. He who is able to read these words aright will doubtlessly already see in them the sentence for many who do not observe this most exalted of all the commandments, the most exalted, the highest of all the commandments. And I've said this before, and I explained the reason why this is the highest and most important commandment, right? And we may touch upon that. We are going to touch upon that again in this video. Thou shalt have no other gods. Many a man reads far too little into these words. He has made it too easy for himself. In the first place, he probably thinks of idolaters only as those people who kneel before a row of wooden figures, each one of which represents a particular god. Perhaps he also thinks of demon worshippers and others similarly gone astray, at best calling them to mind with pity, but he does not include himself amongst them. Just take a look at yourselves calmly for once and examine yourselves as to whether perchance you belong to them after all. Right? It's easy to point the fingers and throw the rocks, family, but the greatest battle is always going to be the battle with self. Right? We don't want to turn the mirror on ourselves. Right? One person has a child who really means more to him than anything, for whom he would be able to make any sacrifice, forgetting all else. Another sets earthly pleasures far above everything, and with the best volition would in the end absolutely would in the end be absolutely incapable of renouncing this pleasure for anything if he were faced with such a challenge as affording him a voluntary decision. Yet a third again loves money, a fourth power, a fifth a woman, another earthly recognition. And again, in all these things, they all ultimately love only themselves. This is idolatry in the truest sense of the word. The first commandment warns against it, forbids it, and woe to him who does not obey it to the letter. This infringement avenges itself immediately, for such a person must always remain earthbound when he passes over into the ethereal realm. In reality, however, he has only bound himself to the earth through the attachment to something which is upon the earth. He is thus held back from further ascent, loses the time given to him for it, and runs the risk of not emerging from the ethereal realm in time to rise therefrom to the luminous realm of the free spirits. He will then be swept along into the inevitable disintegration of all material substance, which serves to purify it for its resurrection and its new formation. But for the human soul, this is ethereal and spiritual death of all the personal consciousness it had developed, and therewith also the destruction of its form and its name for all eternity. Right? So this is the dreadful fate. And I've talked about this so many times, family. This is the dreadful fate of idolatry, of putting things before God. Because remember, we came from God. We're spiritual creatures, and this spirit it is connected to God. Right? But when we break that connection, we remain trapped here in a material world, and we cannot ascend into the spiritual world. And if we're not able to do that, then we're going to fall into the disintegration, which is described in the Bible as eternal damnation. And it says it right here. That is spiritual death. That is real death. Because you see, the death of your fleshly body, that's not really dying. That's just you passing over from the gross material physical to the ethereal. Right? That's it. That's not really death. You're just changing forms. So if you get caught up in this eternal damnation, that's real death. And as it says right here, it is a destruction of its form and its name for all eternity. Right? It's a very dreadful fate. Very painful. Imagine being burned alive forever. Imagine something like that. It doesn't even come close to what that experience of eternal damnation will be like, right? And this is no fault of God. So don't even look at this such a reality and say, oh, how can God allow such things? No, it is a fault of humanity, right? It is your fault. Don't blame God, right? Moving on. Obedience to this commandment is meant to give protection from this terrible fate. It is one of the most exalted commandments because it remains the one most necessary to man. Unfortunately, he is all too apt to yield to some attachment which finally enslaves him. But whatever he allows to become an attachment, he therewith makes into a golden calf, right? Like Moses when he freed the slaves from Egypt. He went away for a little bit and they formed a false god, right? That's the same thing we're doing today. Right? Setting it in the highest place, making it a false god or idol besides his God, and very often even above him, even above his God. Right? So again, family, we need to understand what it is explaining to us here. This is the most terrible fate. This is the worst thing that can ever happen to a human spirit. Right? So the idea is, we are spiritual creatures. We must remain connected to God. We must remain connected to our source. That's the only way we can return home. because it's this integration that it's talking about. It's a natural process that happens all the time in the material world with all the celestial bodies. So this planet Earth that we're living on has a birth date and it has a death date. It's not going to be here forever, right? The planet's coming to existence to live, however long, billions and upon billions of years. Then they disintegrate, right, and reform. And this is a process that happens with every body. Look at nature, look at animals, look at the human bodies. We go through this, this process of birth and rebirth over and over again. The process of birth, growing, maturing, and decaying. We go through that over and over again. And then finally, our body dies. But you see this process repeated all throughout creation. So it's a natural process. But when it comes to the celestial bodies, right, by the time that gets ready to happen to this planet, we must be out of here by then. And if we're not out of here by then, because we have attached ourselves to earthly things, then we get swept up in this disintegration, which is described as the eternal damnation. There's no coming back from that, family, right? Unfortunately, there are only too many attachments which man has created for himself, in which, with the utmost thoughtlessness, he readily adopts. An attachment is the predilection for something earthly, as I have already pointed out. Naturally, there are still many more of them, but he who acquires an attachment is attached, as the word correctly indicates. He is thereby attached to the gross material when he enters the beyond for his further development, and cannot easily detach himself again from it. He is thus retarded, held back. This can indeed also be called a curse that remains a perpetual burden to him. The process is the same no matter how it is expressed in words. Right? So there's this movie, The Christmas Carol. There's many versions of The Christmas Carol, but there was a version that came out years ago with Jim Carrey, and I believe it was an animated version. But in that version, there was a scenery where when the ghost was taking him around, there were, he could see Ebenezer Scrooge, right? He could see all these spirits, right? But they were earthbound spirits. They were trapped here on the earth, and he could see all these spirits with their various, attachments and things like that. So there are a lot of earthbound spirits here who have attached themselves to the earth and cannot ascend into the higher realms, right? And guess what they're doing? They're using us, those of us who are still here in our physical bodies. They're using us to continue to enjoy the pleasures of this earth. That's why for those of us who have certain propensities, drinking, smoking, whatever the case is, food, sex, whatever the case is, have certain propensities to doing whatever, right? We are being used by these bodiless souls in the beyond to enjoy their pleasures. And eventually, we end up being drugged down with them, right? This stuff goes deep, family. It goes incredibly deep. All right, let's move on to the next paragraph. If in his life on earth, however, he puts God above all else, not only in his perception or merely in his words, but in his intuition, thus truly and genuinely in reverential love that binds him as to an attachment, then through the same effect, this binding will at once cause him to strive upwards when he enters the beyond. For he takes with him the reverence and love for God. It supports him and bears him finally towards God's vicinity, which is our spiritual homeland where we came from, right? That's God's vicinity. That's as our spiritual homeland where we came from. That's as close as that we can get to God, right? But that's where we belong. That's our paradise, right? It supports him and bears him finally towards God's vicinity into paradise, the primordial creation, the abode of the pure spirits who have become free from all burdens and whose binding leads only to God's luminous truth. So what does it say, family? You have a choice. You can attach yourself down here to material things, to earthly things, right? And remain stuck here and suffer the fate that's going to happen to these earthly things, or you can attach yourself to God, your creator, and be pulled up when this body dies and returns to the earth and be pulled up. So what would you rather be attached to? This earth or to God the Father? You feel me? Moving on. Oh, dang. We're already at the end. Look at that, family. Whoa. I thought we had more to go. All right, let's cap it off. Let's read the last paragraph. Therefore, pay strict attention to the keeping of this commandment. You will be protected thereby from many unfavorable blows of fate, for the release of which there may not be enough time remaining. For the release of which there may not be enough time remaining. What that means is, family, there is a too late. We are on limited time here. So we do have to strike. We do have to strive. We do have to fight and get ourselves together so we can liberate ourselves from this darkness and be able to ascend into our spiritual homeland. This is what the Creator wants for us. We were not meant to be down here on this planet Earth forever. This planet Earth was a school. You were supposed to come down here, learn what you're supposed to learn, and then return home. Right? But we have came here, fell in love with various nonsense, fell in love with Lucifer's lies, and have trapped ourselves down here. Right? So just be mindful of that, family. Think about the dreadful fate that comes with that. Now, we're getting ready to bring this to a close, but I want to share something with y'all real quick, because I've also discussed many times in my video how this first commandment has been violated in so many ways, right? By this new age spiritual, nonsense that comes under many names and many umbrellas and so forth. It has been violated. You have all these people, so-called spiritual teachers, that have came on the scene, written books, given talks, telling you about manifestation. You can manifest the life you want, right? You are God. You have the power of the universe within you. Just focus, just believe, and you can make anything happen because you're a God. They tell you this nonsense, family, and the way they articulate it, it sounds so damn good. But it's a lie. It's false. It's the same lie that Lucifer told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. If you eat this apple, you will become like God. You will know what God knows, and you'll be able to do what God does. That is a lie. The human being is far, the gulf between human beings and God is why it's too damn great. Right? You're not God. Right? So with that being said, let me play this video about a minute or two from this lady, spirit channeler, that I've talked about so many times in my video. And I want y'all to hear how they articulate this stuff so well. So to the untrained mind, you hear this and you'll fall in love. Oh my gosh, there's truth. And don't get me wrong, there's truth in what she says. But the ultimate deception is telling you that you are God. You're not God. You don't have any power of your own. Everything you're able to do is done with the power of God. See what I'm saying? Family, this stuff goes deep, right? All right, so let me unmute this. Let's go over here and play this. Y'all can see this, right?
That's why we've been teasing you a little bit, saying that humans have servituditis. And by that, what we mean is you sort of are missing the point. You are God. You are.
I love it.
You are.
I love it. Cool.
And someone who was a very good ambassador from your point of view of God, which is Jesus, understood that if you sat before him dripping your illness, he didn't see your illness. Instead, he knew your wellness. He saw you in your God form, not in your human form where you were slightly disconnected from it. And so when you're tuned into that, that is when you do your greatest service. We're not trying to talk you out of service. It feels wonderful to be of value to others. We just want you to plug your vacuum in before you try to vacuum the floor. If you're not plugged in to the source energy, then you have nothing to give. So you can't serve without knowing who you are.
Amen. Awesome.
All right, so I just wanted to play that a little bit for y'all, right? And as I said, the way it is articulated, it sounds so beautiful, and there's truth in there, right? Like the metaphor she used about, plugging your cord in before you serving people and stuff like that. That's a beautiful metaphor, and it's true but the problem that I have with that though is they're referring to God as just source. That's what they want you to think, that God is just some kind of a source of power, some source of energy that you could just, draw from, right? Without having any kind of relationship, without any kind of reverence, without following his laws, without recognizing him, without recognizing that without him, nothing is possible, right? God is a living being. He's not just some battery that you can draw from, right? So a few things here that she said that I want to go over very quickly. She says, human beings have servitude-itis, right? What does she mean by that? What she is saying, I didn't play the whole conversation, but what she was pretty much saying is that this guy was asking her about God, right? And what she's saying is that human beings have service-itis or servitude-itis, meaning that we just want to serve something, right? We want to bow down to something. We want to worship something. But what we should realize is that we are that which we are trying to worship, right? You are God. That's what she's trying to say. Stop trying to serve God and be God. That's what she's trying to say. And I know that may sound beautiful to a lot of y'all, but that's nonsense. That's blasphemous, right? That is blasphemous. He's literally telling you to stop serving God and be God. No, family. No, it don't work like that, right? Serving God is one of the greatest, things a human spirit can do, right? So let me ask you this question. Are you a creator? Right? Since you are God, if you believe this nonsense she's telling you, are you a creator? Did you create yourself? Right? Since you're God. Because I'm not a creator. I didn't create myself. Right? So if you're God and you believe that nonsense, that means you are a creator. You created yourself. And not only did you create yourself, did you create everything else that we see in creation? Because that's what it means to be God. Stop taking the words lightly. Stop giving it a false meaning. To be God means to be a creator. And it says in the commandments, I am the Lord, your God. He didn't say, it didn't say in the first commandment, you could be God like me. It didn't say that. He said, I am your God. You should have no other gods but me. So by you telling yourself you're God, you're putting yourself on the level with God. Not just on the level of God, as it says right here, you're putting yourself above him. Right? As it says right here. What is that? Right here, you're setting yourself above him. You're not God. You didn't create yourself. You did not create the universe. So how can you be God? Huh? And as I mentioned in the video that I did, talking about this nonsense, a lot of these people within this new age spirituality, right? You have stumbled across this power of God. And due to a certain understanding of this power that flows all throughout the universe, all throughout creation, due to a certain understanding of that power, you're able to manipulate it and make things happen. right? That's the manifestation they're talking about. But it doesn't mean that you're God. It doesn't mean that this power comes from you. It doesn't mean that you are the source of this power. It just means that your creator loves you so much that he gives you some of his power. He gives you the ability to be free, to think and make decisions, to use his power to make things happen. But that power does not belong to you. You're not the source of that power. That's the part that they fail to tell you. And that's blasphemy, family. That is putting man on a level with God or above God. Right? That is turning man into a golden calf. Right? And as it says earlier in this lecture, family, we have all these things. Because you talk to a lot of people. Excuse me, family. I'm hitting my microphone. You talk to a lot of people, right? Matter, let me say it like this. That's getting on my nerves. All right, let me say it like this, right? Do you love God? Tell me, do you love God? Right? How do you treat the things you love? Right? Think about all the people in your life, all the things in your life. And I'm talking about love here, family. Love, right? So think about all the things in your life that you love, all the people in your life that you love. How do you treat those things? Right? Because we say all the time that we love God. But what does it mean to love something? You love God. Do you have a relationship with God? How often do you talk to God? How often do you pray? How much time do you spend with God? Because the things in your life that you love, you make time for those things. You spend a lot of time with those things in people, right? You do certain things to serve those things and those people, right? It's one thing to say that we love God, family, but how are we showing that we love God? What is your relationship with the Creator? You see what I'm saying? Because we have all these things in our lives that we love and we put before God. As it says, right? As it says in the lecture, right? Some of us love earthly power. Some of us, love pleasure seekers, right? Some is a woman, some is a man. Some you love your kids more than anything. And there's nothing wrong with loving your kids. God is not saying don't love your kids. But family, what makes everything possible? This love that you have for your kid or your husband or your wife. Whose power, whose creation makes all that possible? Would you have all those things you love without God? If God didn't create that possibility, would you have those things? See what I'm saying, family? So don't watch this video as it says in the lecture. Don't sit there, right, on your high horse, patting yourself on the back, thinking that it applies to all of us. We have all sinned against this most exalted of the commandments. We have all created golden calves. Right? Some of us have done it with, people in our lives, things we love. Some of us have done it with ourselves. Some of us have turned ourselves into golden calves. Family. So just things to think about. And it's not that complicated, family. This ain't no rocket science. It's very simple. As the lecture says here, either you attach yourself to the earth and suffer the fate that comes with that, or you attach yourself to the Creator, right, and reap the rewards that come with that. It's a choice. And God loves you so much that He gives you the freedom to choose. He loves you so much that He doesn't force you to choose Him. Right? So think about it, family. Is there anything else that I wanted to say before I close this? So again, family, I just want to warn you guys again, be aware of all these, new age stuff that's coming to y'all, new thought, whatever they call it, new age, new thought. They try to separate the two, but it's really the same thing, family. New age and new thought are not different. It's the same thing. It has always been the same thing. They just always try to give it a new name. Beware of these people. Beware of the Abraham Hicks. Detach yourself from these people. Beware of the Bashars, the Neville Goddards. Right? I believe Neville Goddard wrote a book titled You Are God. All these people, there have been so many of them. The Eckhart Tolles and so forth. These people are teaching you spirituality without God, and that doesn't make sense, because where does the spiritual come from? Spirituality is not possible without God. I remember years ago reading this Eckhart Tolle book. I don't know which one of his it was, right? But in there, he's encouraging people to become spiritual. But not once does he talk about God, Jesus, or Emmanuel, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Not once does he try to lead you to God. But he wants you to be spiritual. They all teach spirituality. They all want you to be spiritual. How is that possible without God? Because the only spirituality without God is evil, is darkness, is Luciferian. Right? That's what they're teaching you when they're telling you to become spiritual. Family, as she said here in this video, human beings have a service-itis, a servitude-itis. But what they fail to realize is this, family. Human beings have, there's something that is innate within us that causes us to seek and strive and search for God, our creator. That is innate within us. Right? That's why people go to all these different places in life, all these different schools of thought, all these different religions. Because there is something innate within you that wants to connect to God. Right? So then what happens is, if you don't connect to God, you're going to connect to something else. You're going to serve something else. You're going to worship something else. So she over here talking about some human beings have a servitude-itis. Right? We have service-itis. All we want to do is serve. Well, yeah, family, that's innate within us. If you're not worshiping and serving God, family, you're going to be worshiping and serving something else. That's just how it goes. Right? So what's better? Worshiping yourself?
I'm God. I can manifest. All I need to do is do my yoga, focus, and do my meditation, right? And really believe and connect with the universe, right? And I can manifest, right?
That's what they're teaching you. But what's better, family? Worshiping yourself? Worshiping idols? Or worshiping the one who created you and gives you life? Don't let these people lie to you, family. They're lying to you about God. All these people, they're fallen angels. They're deceptive, but they know how to articulate these things so very well because they're not ignorant, right? They know that God exists, but they don't want you to know that, right? They don't want you to know that. They want to drive you away from God, because the God that they serve, right, is what they refer to in Freemasonry as the great architect of the universe. That's Lucifer. That's the God they serve. That's why they're always talking this universe nonsense. The universe. Right? Always talking this universe nonsense. They will worship the universe, right? Bow to the universe, but for some reason, they seem to be allergic to worshiping the creator of the universe. For some reason, that's a bad thing, right? People are so comfortable saying the universe. They're so comfortable saying that. But for some reason, it's like when you say God, you got to be careful because those Christians, those God believing people. You gotta watch them now, right? But when you say the universe, it's all good. Oh, you're spiritual. Oh, you're enlightened, right? But when you say God, oh, those religious people, those closed-minded people. Family, we're in a spiritual warfare here. All right? We're in a spiritual warfare. You're not fighting against people. You're fighting against powers and principalities. This is real stuff, family. You know what I mean? So with that being said, man, let's go ahead and bring this video to a close. That was the first commandment. In the next video, we're going to be going over the second commandment. Where's the second commandment? Let's just go back our ear. Zoom out. I think the second commandment is not using the Lord's name in vain. I think. Yeah, I was right. Thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain. So next time we come together for the 10 Commandment series, that's the one we're going to be going over. All right. But family, man, I would certainly encourage you guys to go online, read the commandments as given to us by the Grail Message. And if y'all have any questions or comments or whatever, man, hit me up, engage, interact with me. Let's talk. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the word. Let's grow together. You know what I mean? So with that being said, family, peace and power to the true and living. This is Seaborn, Nacirfa-Sun, and I am you. I will see y'all in the next video.
A special book which clearly answers the unsolved problems of human existence. The vast knowledge mediated in its pages leads the earnestly seeking reader who weighs and examines objectively out of all the chaos of present-day confusion and distortion to clear recognitions. This book commands attention by its forceful language, by the clarity of its thoughts, and by the setting right of distorted concepts, unmistakably and sometimes severely but irrefutably explained. The laws in which the entire creation came into being and exists are plainly set forth. The world happening is interpreted in its true significance, and man's responsibility before his God and his fellow men is revealed and explained. Thus, to him who opens himself to these recognitions is restored the indestructible inner security of his personality. For the seeking human being, the lectures of this work deal with all essential questions and spheres of life: natural sciences, ethnology, social and economic questions, religion and church, psychology and cultivation of the spirit, family and state, sex and sexuality, occultism and spiritualism, justice and law, knowledge and wisdom, the world, time and eternity, and lastly, the recognition of God. Whoever bears the desire for it living within him and is willing to make the effort will be helped to fulfillment by the work in the light of truth, the Grail Message of Abu Shin. The author writes, I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he honestly seeks for the truth. With my message, I now open the book of creation for you. The message clearly shows you the language of God in creation, which you must learn to understand so that you can make it completely your own. The author recommends that the lectures of this work be read in sequence and not picked out individually, seeking to judge the work in this way. The knowledge of the Grail Message cannot be grasped by simply glancing through it. It is the sacred responsibility of the human spirit to recognize his God and his laws through which the human being and the entire creation came into existence.